Raccoons will eat just about anything. They'll eat corn in the field. They'll eat stuff out of a barn. They'll eat grain by the horse's bin. They will eat just about anything. Can they survive winter? Oh, yeah. Now, you know, right now, what's their strategy for surviving winter? Do you see a lot of raccoons this time of year? What are they doing? They're not true hibernators, I'll tell you that. They go dormant. They're not a true hibernator, but they do reduce their activity significantly, so they'll go into underground dens. If you've got an old barn with old haystacks, and you find a tunnel into the middle of those haystacks, you probably don't want to send your little cousin in to find out what's in there, because it's probably sleeping raccoons. Not that I know that from personal experience or anything. So they will burrow into any location they can, and they'll sleep for a couple weeks at a time, which sounds great. They'll just kind of curl up, not do much. They come out occasionally, but they're not real active. So they survive winter well. Are they active in the summer? Will they survive heat? Yeah, not a problem. Heat, cold, bring it. They can eat anything. How do they reproduce? Sexually? Do they care for their young? Yes. They have, I don't know what their litter size is. I've seen litters of 5 or 6. I would imagine they can probably have larger litters than that sometimes. So I give you the Raccoons Range Map. Now, not global, but, you know, check out North America. Check out northern South America, and this one weird little patch in India. I don't know. That's still a pretty big range. Are you noticing a trend with these things that have these broad ranges? What are you noticing? Whoops, we're not there yet. What do you... Eat anything. You got that? Sure, I'll eat it. Cold and heat tolerance? Yeah, cold, okay. Hot, okay. Now let's talk about this little friend. Aww. You can all get your aw out of the way. What is it? It's a giant panda. Aww. What do they eat? Bamboo. You know what else they eat? Bamboo. Do you know what else they eat in addition to bamboo? Bamboo. They eat bamboo. That's all they eat. That's it. That's all they eat. They eat bamboo. They eat a lot of bamboo. They're huge animals. They eat tons of bamboo. Bamboo is actually a grass. It is a perennial, or a, not perennial. Yeah, I guess it is a perennial. Anyway, they eat bamboo. They eat a lot of bamboo. They eat all plant matter. They can't eat animals. They don't eat bugs. They don't eat meat. They don't eat garbage. They eat bamboo. Maybe some other grasses, I don't know. Mostly just bamboo. They can tolerate cold. They can't tolerate heat very well. How do they reproduce? Sexually. Every few years it's a huge deal because there's a baby panda born at the National Zoo in D.C. They have one baby at a time. Those babies are incredibly fragile. They provide care, but their babies are very fragile. They're born one at a time. They require lots and lots and lots of energy from the parent pandas. Is this sounding a little bit different than the other species we've been talking about? Well, guess where pandas live? There. Those tiny little dots. Not a real big range. Huh. Okay, oh, what about this one? Aww. More aww. What is it? Koala. What do koalas eat? Do you know what koalas eat? Cuteness. No. They exude cuteness. They don't eat it. Yes. That's what I hear. That they're not so... You don't actually want to cuddle a koala because they'll tear your face off. So what do they eat? Eucalyptus leaves and bark. Guess what else they eat? Eucalyptus leaves and bark. Do you know what they eat in addition to eucalyptus leaves? Eucalyptus leaves. Are you getting a sense that there's a trend here? They eat one thing. Do they do well in all climates? Do you know? No, they're pretty limited. And they're so cute. Yeah, they're so cute, and yet, yes, they have very sharp, long claws, and they smell like mentholated cough drops because all they eat is eucalyptus. So I hear they're kind of greasy and stinky. That's where they live. That's it, in the whole planet. That's where they live. Adorable. Pretty limited range. Aww. Oh, wait, nobody says aw for this. Do you know what this is? It's cactus. It's a saguaro cactus, specifically. Has anybody here been to Tucson, Arizona? Okay. Should go to Tucson, Arizona. I lived there for a while. It's cool. They have these things. These are saguaro cactuses. And they're very tall. This is probably a several hundred-year-old cactus. You can go into a forest of saguaro cactuses. Not the kind of forest you and I think about, being from Ohio. But these things are ancient, long-lived, prickly, neat, very tolerant of drought. They can't tolerate a lot of water. If it gets too wet, they die. They can tolerate some degree of cold. They cannot tolerate a hard freeze. They can tolerate extreme heat. They can't really tolerate being preyed on by much. If you chop them off, they just die. They're relatively fragile. Here's the range map for the saguaro cactus. It's the only place they live. It's the Sonoran Desert. So basically southern Arizona, northwest Mexico, extreme southern part of California. Very localized. Okay, last one. Aww! We went there collecting insects in the streams there. Bull Run comes in, a little Bull Run comes in. They're nice, nice streams. So I found one of these. This is a Mottled Sculpin. And they're a weird, flat little fish. Who here has seen a fish? Good. I'll assign you homework if I have to. When you think of fish, you think of something that's kind of, well, this shaped. Didn't even draw it. Sculpin are almost flat. And they have these, like, they're like little muscle guys. They have these super strong fins, and they grip the bottom of the creek. Crazy little fish. And they hang on in the fastest moving water. They only eat a few things. They have to have super cold, super oxygenated water. If the water gets too warm or the oxygen level drops, they die off. And the sculpin's range, you're probably figuring out the trend here. It's pretty limited. Species that are generalists. They have a wide niche. There's a big range of things that they can tolerate or accept. Their tolerance ranges tend to be pretty wide. So of the species we just talked about, whoops, I guess I got rid of all the pictures, huh? Name one of those species that you think is a generalist, that has a wide variety of conditions that they can live in, survive in. Pigeons, absolutely. Pigeons. Which other ones do you think are generalists? The rat is the prime generalist. They are the classic example of a generalist. Give me another one. Which of those ones that we discussed is pretty flexible in terms of their requirements? Raccoons are fabulous. I always spell raccoon wrong. Are there two C's or only one? I think there's only one. That doesn't look right, does it? There are two C's. Okay, my first impulse was correct. Good. Okay, which of the other animals that we discussed, or organisms, I should say, living things, do you think is a generalist? Dandelions. So those are 4 species that we just talked about that are able to tolerate a wide variety of conditions. They're pretty flexible in terms of their requirements. Those are generalists. If it's something that somebody calls a weed, it's probably a generalist. We talk about generalists very often as weed species. Do you know what the ultimate generalist is? I am sitting in the room with almost 20 of them. Humans. Humans are fabulous generalists. Think about it. What can humans eat? Darn near anything.
Anything that won't.
Humans can exist on a nearly all-meat diet. See the Inuit of the Arctic. Humans can exist on a vegetarian diet. Humans can exist on an omnivorous diet. Basically, yeah, if it's not poisonous, we can eat it. But there's a lot of stuff we can eat. Where can humans live? Every place. We've taken over the whole globe. Arctic Circle to Antarctic Circle. There are humans. We can adapt to a broad range of conditions, and we can figure out ways to survive in a broad range of conditions. We're fabulous generalists. Generalists tend to thrive under a broad range of conditions. Generalists adapt themselves well. And like I said, if you hear something called a weed species, it's probably a generalist. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have our more delicate friends. These are species that have a narrow niche. They're delicate. They don't survive a broad range of conditions. Maybe they're really sensitive about temperature. Maybe they can only eat one thing. Oh, name me one of the species we talked about that's a general or a specialist. Pandas, classic example of a super specialist. And they may go extinct because of that. They don't have a lot of variety in terms of what they can digest. So as bamboo forests in the mountains of Asia shrink, so does their range. Okay, what else? What's one of the other species we talked about that would be a specialist? The koalas. Koalas. Definitely a specialist. Limited diet, limited tolerance for temperature conditions. Which of the other species we talked about is a specialist? The Saguaro cactus specifically. Saguaro, I'm going to spell this wrong. Cactus. And the fourth one that's a specialist, that weird little fish, huh? The sculpin. So here's the thing. And Mr. Voorhees says this all the time. You know, generalists survive. Generalists thrive. Specialists die. It's harder to be a specialist and survive. It's harder for the species to survive if you're a specialist. Generalists tend to be pretty flexible, pretty adaptable, and tend to do well in a variety of conditions. Your niche project is on Classroom. You should be able to complete the whole thing in a half an hour to 45 minutes. It is homework. It is due tomorrow. Now, I'll make it due by midnight tomorrow. Look at the example carefully, and I'll walk through it with you.